Well, this has been a long time coming, and a lot of negotiations have gone on to get this bill to this point where we had a strong bipartisan vote last night. We look forward to sending this bill to the House so the U.S. can establish itself as the country that has adopted the most advanced, forward-thinking digital asset policy in the world. It's something President Trump supports. It's something that we are dedicated to because the digital asset industry is already embedded in our country and worldwide. And we need to have something that preserves a dual banking system that recognizes the U.S. dollar through our U.S. treasuries as the important global asset that they are and continues to be, as Senator Haggerty says, the impetus for our being the global world reserve currency. This week, Coinbase, a digital asset company, joins the S&P 500, the first digital asset company to join the S&P 500. Digital assets are here to stay. Among the 20 largest holders in the world of U.S. treasuries is a stablecoin. These are embedded assets that we haven't regulated, that we haven't welcomed into our country until the Genius Act. I want to thank Senator Haggerty for his tireless work on this. I want to thank Senator Thune for giving us another chance at getting this to closure. And it is a great advance forward, not only for the U.S. Senate, in that it is the first bill that's come out of the Banking Committee in 8 years, but it is our first effort to integrate our country into what will be a faster and cheaper means by which individuals, small businesses, and others can engage in business all over the world. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We have some massive news to get into in regard to, are the markets about to take off? Are they going to explode? Well, for me, I think the answer is yes. Might not happen necessarily tomorrow, but if this bill gets passed that was introduced from Senator Lummis out of Wyoming, I think we are set for the ultimate bullish market, the bull of bulls, to say the least, moving forward. We just kindly ask you to consider smashing that like if you haven't done so already. And what is this all about? Well, roughly about an hour ago, Senator Lummis decided to share something that was on a lot of different news broadcasts. And let's just jump right into it.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. So just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
So the way I look at it, Jesse, it's like this. Backstage, you mentioned to me that there's countries like the Philippines, for example. You know, my mom came from the Philippines all the way back in 1948. And she came over here in 77, right? But the Philippines, you have basically, I think last I checked, like a 50-to-1 ratio on the Filipino dollar compared to the exchange rate with the US dollar. You mentioned that there's instances where the US dollar may not necessarily benefit like countries like, for example, the Philippines, where if it gets strengthened too much, it could actually be do damage to particular countries. Well, now moving forward with digital assets, when we talk about like RLUSD, right? Clearly, you can see here if this bill gets passed, well, then a country like the Philippines wouldn't have to worry so much about, hey, guess what? This only benefits the United States, the strengthening of the dollar, because we have something like Ripple's RLUSD. And since we're indebted to countries, whether it's the United States or various other ones and so on, hey, no problem. We could use Ripple's on-demand liquidity with Ripple XRP to tokenize that debt. So now you see a big win for the country of the Philippines. You see a big win moving forward, obviously, for the United States. And you see a big win moving forward for us who are Ripple XRP holders. Your thoughts, Jesse?
Oh, wow. Where to start? Honestly, the issue is, you need a solution like Ripple to settle transaction, like the US dollar being global reserve currency and all the other countries around the world having to hold it. That can be very problematic for many countries, because whatever policies the U.S. Does, if the U.S. dollar, like you said, if it strengthens against their dollar and they're holding debt that's denominated in the U.S. dollar, this is really not good. They might not be ever be able to pay that debt, right? And so that's why XRP is so crucial for this new world order. Um, every country is going to be able to do whatever they want to do. Um, they're not going to have to hold the US dollar. They can just hold XRP, and it doesn't, or they don't even have to hold XRP either. They just do their trade with, if they want to send, if they want to send a payment across the world, cross border, they can just settle with XRP. So they don't have to hold US dollars. They can hold their own currency. They can hold another currency. They can hold whatever assets and currencies they want. And then when they need to do that trade, they just go through XRP to settle the transaction. So I think this has been planned for over 30 years. So I think that's where we're going. And she's saying, how did she say that? She said businesses will be able to do faster and cheaper transactions globally, and cheap. Sorry, she said cheap and fast transactions. Well, you can't do that without using XRP, right? She's talking about XRP there, in my opinion, because even if you tokenize everything, if you're still using Swift, it's not going to be faster and cheaper. So, yeah, it's going to be faster and cheaper. Why? Because the whole world's being tokenized, and it's all going to settle mostly in XRP, in my opinion. It's a new internet of value. So yeah, that's what she means by faster and cheaper. To me, she's talking XRP. And we know that XRP Ripple's been working with the Federal Reserve for many years. That's all documented. We know that they're sitting on the global steering committee for the ISO 20022. A lot of people talk about these different tokens, different cryptocurrencies being compliant for the ISO 20022. But a lot of people don't realize that Ripple, in my understanding, Ripple is the only cryptocurrency project that is actually on the steering committee of the ISO 20022. Well, isn't that interesting?
Well, speaking of your thoughts and whatnot, guys, I want to point this out. So Jesse has been doing a lot of XRP content on his channel, a lot of Quant content and so on. And so I want to introduce you properly to our community here. Jesse, just briefly, share with us all your journey about how long you've been taking the deep dives in regard to Quant, XRP, and so on. What stood out just in our brief conversation, especially on the X Space earlier today, you talked about, for example, you've been researching like the central banks for maybe over 7 years or over a decade and so on. So again, just introduce yourself. So glad to be able to do this collaboration with you, sir.
Man, I really appreciate you having me. It's really an honor, man, for you to invite me here and do a collab with you. I'm really, really blessed for that. No, I started researching crypto in early 2018, sorry. Somebody introduced me to Bitcoin, and right away I stumbled on XRP. I realized they were working with all central banks, and having researched the central banking system for almost 10, 15 years prior to that, and mainstream media and all these different things, it's very when I realized XRP was working with the central banks and the system, I was very curious. I started going deep and the more rabbit holes I chased, the deeper the rabbit hole came, and the more rabbit holes there were. So just became absolutely obsessed with Ripple, XRP, and crypto. I started researching. I was researching almost 5-10 hours per day. Literally put the whole work, my self-employed aside, like, because I'm self-employed, so I put everything almost aside for the most part, and I was researching like a madman. So I researched probably XRP, Ripple for maybe 8 to 10 10,000 hours maybe over the past 7 years. And I stumbled on Quant in 2020 and I became obsessed with Quant as well. So it just went really, really deep with Quant and XRP. Probably researched Quant like maybe 4,000 or 5,000 hours. All in all, maybe like 14,000, 15,000 hours of research, but maybe most of that was Quant and XRP, and then utility tokens and regulations, where this is going, all that stuff. But yeah, I absolutely became just absolutely obsessed, and just started my channel 1 month ago, maybe 5-6 weeks ago, and people have been so supportive and so kind. Like, I really didn't expect to get that kind of support. yeah, it's just been really, really, really nice. Like, really, thank you for everybody that's been supporting me like that, and nice comments. Just mind blowing. And again, thank you so much for having me, man. Like, such an honor, and finally to be here and talk with the community and share my thoughts and get their thoughts, and just because I've had that on my heart for years. I just didn't start a YouTube channel to share, and be able to talk to other people, and I've been wanting to share my thoughts for so long, and yeah, to just collab and talk to people. And yeah, so it's here I am, man, with you here today, and it's just such an honor. So awesome. And it's really nice for Sebastian to have me on the space today. It was really, really nice. Yeah, so that's pretty much it.
It is nice to have you, and we have these X Spaces every other Tuesday, basically at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Now, something I want to bring up to you guys is this. Senator Lummis talked about the whole thing of a dual banking system. And this is going to be a good conversational piece before we wrap things up pretty soon. And that is, when we talk about the dual banking system, some people point out, well, the dual banking system is obviously going to involve, what's on, private and public. Well, Jesse brought up the whole thing, and I wrote this down in my own notes, sir, and that was the topic of regulated internet of value. You mentioned this earlier about before the concept of the internet of trust and the internet of value. You were saying that the term was actually regulated. Excuse me, I'll read it again. Regulated internet of value. I've never even heard that term before. So if anything, I'm learning something. Share with our community a little bit about that, because you mentioned there's a difference between what Quant brings to the table when it comes to the internet of trust. You feel as though they are the internet of trust.
Yeah.
That's a standard itself. And that when it comes to Ripple XRP, that is the internet of value. How do the two come together on what is referred to as the shared unified ledger? Your thoughts?
Oh boy. Okay. So Gilbert Verdian said, when he was talking about the regulated liability network, Gilbert Verdian, CEO of Quant, said we also partnered with R3, who are bringing in the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets will reside. So he's saying specifically the shared ledger, and he's saying that all the tokenized assets reside on this shared ledger that R3 is bringing over. They're partnered with R3 for that specific reason, for the regulated liability network. And then Tony McLaughlin of Citibank, in one of the Citi episodes about a month ago, said that the idea of a shared ledger is technically all of the central banks database, commercial banks database, and fintech databases. They all have databases. And he says, so technically they have about 25,000 databases, 25,000 banks and fintechs represent 25,000 databases, and you merge them all into a shared ledger. And he says, essentially, that is the regulated liability network. So Tony McLaughlin of Citibank, which always sitting on stage with Gilbert Verdian, he says that the shared ledger is the regulated liability network. And then, but when the regulated liability network was first mentioned in a Citi document, it was actually called the regulated internet of value. When the first concept came out, when they talked about it, they called it the regulated internet of value. And then afterwards, immediately they changed the name. They call it regulated internet of value. They call it the regulated settlement network, and so on and so forth. And so for me, it's like they changed the name. They didn't want to call it the regulated internet of value because everybody's going to know it's Ripple. Everybody's going to know this shared ledger is Ripple, because for anybody that's researched Ripple even just an hour, everybody knows Ripple is the internet of value. For the last 7 years, I can probably show you 1,000 different videos of Brad Garlinghouse or anybody at Ripple saying we're building the internet of value, we're building the internet of value, we're building the internet of value. And Gilbert Verdian, when he mentions internet, he says we are the internet of trust. Gilbert Verdian never said once we are the internet of value. He said we are the internet of trust. So, and then we see the BIS, one of the top tech guys for the BIS. There's a video, I show that on one of my YouTube videos. He's talking about how the unified ledger is replacing Swift. So we all know that Ripple is the ones replacing Swift. And this guy from the BIS is talking about how the unified ledger, if we use a unified ledger, we can replace Swift because it will replace all the correspondent banking and all this need for Nostro Vostros. And he literally describes Ripple technology. And everybody knows that Ripple is the ones replacing Swift. So So to me, the unified ledger and the shared ledger is technically the same thing. And the central bankers are using different names every time because they want to keep us confused. For example, if you look at Project Enbridge, 7 central banks. Well, Project Enbridge has to be technically on the shared ledger because Gilbert Vernon said that all of the tokenized assets reside on the shared ledger. So if all tokenized assets reside on that, that includes CBDCs because a CBDC is a tokenized asset. That's all it is. So we're not only talking stocks, bonds, derivatives here. Like I said, a tokenized asset, a CBDC is a tokenized asset. So if all tokenized assets reside on the shared ledger, which doesn't mean that means Project Rosalind is technically using shared ledger. It means that Project Enbridge is using the shared ledger. They're all using the shared ledger. So they're using different names for all these different projects around the world. But technically, for the most part, you've got the shared ledger, which is where all the assets are going to settle, which is the XRP ledger. Now, you might have XLM as well, for example, because we see the BIS documents connecting the unified ledger. We see that in the diagrams. It's the interledger protocol that's connecting the unified ledgers. So maybe XLM could be considered unified ledger. Maybe Hedera could be one, too, or whatever. But generally, it's XRP is going to get 90% of volume. Regardless if XLM is a unified ledger and XRP is one, too, XRP will get probably 90% of the volume. And the other reason too why the XRP ledger is the shared ledger is because people have to understand the architecture of the XRP ledger. The XRP ledger has side chains, and the Ripple CBDC platform, which is a special platform for central banks around the world to build CBDCs, these are actually built on side chains of the XRP ledger. These are carbon clone copies. These are copies of the XRP ledger. So they're sidechain, and the central banks are building their CBDCs on side chains all around the XRP ledger. And I'm thinking RippleNet's probably a private ledger too. Probably, yeah, a sidechain of the XRP ledger. Central banks are all building their CBDCs, and tokenization as well is all happening on the side chain. So, like by definition, the XRP ledger is a shared ledger, and the central banks around the world are going to settle through this public ledger later on. But by definition, the XRP ledger is a shared ledger. It's a unified ledger. And like I said, Quant is the Internet of Trust. XRP is the Internet of Value. Quant complements the shared ledger. It complements the Internet of Value because it allows all of the existing legacy systems to connect into the shared ledger and also connect into the other blockchains as well. Like Quant allows the whole world to build multi-chain applications. So what it does is, because of Overledger, all of the tech companies, corporations, central bank, like they can all build solutions, and they're picking the best features of each chain, the shared ledger being one of them. Maybe they pick the shared ledger, unified ledger for tokenization, CBDC. Maybe they pick another chain for something else. So they're picking the best features of each blockchain and building what's called an MDApp, a multi-chain application. Only Quant allows that to happen. So Quant is absolutely crucial for the adoption and for us to move into this fourth industrial revolution, which is tokenization, age, and AI. So that's kind of the short of it. My opinion on that. Yeah.
I love the perspective that you share, and you bring a lot of deep dive content to a lot of us here in the community and so on. Another thing I want to touch bases on is you mentioned a little bit about the RLN and the RSN. The way I look at it personally is, they, as in Citi, because we know that Citi was pretty much the host, if you will, of the regulated settlement network and the regulated liability network over the course of, I want to say, 1 to 2 years with these pilots. And what we found out is they constantly referenced the unified shared ledger. So for one, when I think of settlement, Jesse, I think of, like, back to what you're talking about. Settlement would not be with QNT. Settlement would be with Ripple XRP, because, let's face it, some people will point out, like, well, QNT, yeah, it's not going to sell on QNT, right? But QNT, as Gilbert Vernon has pointed out, that is just a key to, like, the Apple App Store, if you will. It's not literally the Apple App Store, but it's a key to a suite of products. We discovered recently obviously the integration with Amazon, especially when it comes to the API fees and so on. And it was like, wow, the discovery was, especially on Reddit, there was actually like legitimate companies that were complaining about the solution that they had to get the job done. And they were like, well, we need a little bit more scalability. The platform we're on right now, we need to move to something else. And I'm looking at it from the perspective that Quant will leverage all these technologies, but again, even from the API side of things, not even counting central banks and so on, it's like, yeah, guess what? You need to have little slivers, apparently, of QNT moving forward. Well, a lot of people, as we speak, complain about, I'm currently, I saw one guy in the comments, I'm a peasant, he says. I'm priced out of QNT. You think you're priced out of QNT now? Watch when regulations hit. Watch when Amazon starts really going gangbusters with this API integration. It's not going to be just one small company. Yeah, there'll be small and medium enterprises, but then there will always be the big institutions as well. Combine that with a limited supply. I mean, Quant in itself, that's big news as well. But I'm with you. I think your philosophy about the shared unified ledger is the, Quant, the internet of trust, as Gilbert Verdi has said numerous times. And also the internet of value has to be Ripple XRP moving forward. So great insight. Glad to bring it to you guys. Hey, we want to share and showcase Jesse's channel. So here it basically is. Let's go ahead and get this on your screen. He could be followed over at Apex Crypto Consulting. And as you see right here, he has a lot of deep dive material, right? So for one, here's one of his most recent videos about QNT Crypto Bombshell, BIS Power Unleashed, QNT CBDC. I had to finish that. I was actually watching that before I reached out to you. But yeah, check it out, you guys. And on top of that, help this brother scale up his channel. He can be followed over at Apex Crypto Consulting NFA, all one word if you want to type that in. And of course, he covers quite a few things in regard to Quant and XRP, but it seems as though that your focus is completely on utility, and those, of course, are the two ones that definitely stand out. You're going to learn some new things that you haven't seen even shared from my channel. So as you guys know, I respect people that take the deep dives. This guy, Jesse, does a great job with those deep dives. If you also want to take a little step further, he can be followed over on X at Apex Consult NFA. He just joined us on our X Space that happened earlier. Again, those are bi-weekly, and apparently he's going to be joining us for some more on that. So there you guys have it. So glad to introduce Jesse over at Apex Crypto Consulting NFA with you guys. And with that said, Jesse, it's been awesome doing this collaboration. We have some other collaborations that are coming up, but you, sir, you get the closing comments. And again, thank you so much for the collab.
Man, thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate the shout out. Like, it's really nice, man. I really appreciate it. Last closing thoughts. Yeah, you had asked me about Quant a bit in regards to like what's the role here in regards to settlement. I think you kind of asked me and I didn't answer the question. Sorry. So I think there's a misconception in regards to the secure asset transfer protocol. And so, because like, I think a lot of people in community, based on the little debates I've had sometimes or questions I'm seeing, so on, is a lot of people, I think they think that Quant is settling transaction. Yes, it's settling transaction, but when you look at all different Quant products and different Quant solutions they have, like regardless of even Oracle, whatever solutions they're building using Quant, you have to ask yourself, okay, what blockchain are they using for that? Yes, they're using Quant, but the multi-chain application that they're building with Quant, which blockchain are they using? Which blockchain are they using for the tokenization? Which blockchain are they using for the settlement? Which blockchain are they using for the CBDC? Because again, Quant's an operating system, and Quant can't do anything without blockchain. Like, Quant gets its power from connecting everything to blockchain and connecting to many different blockchains, and then allowing all the legacy systems that exist to connect to blockchain. So I think there's a big misconception. So, for example, the secure asset transfer protocol that Quant is building with MIT, which is absolutely massive, okay? They're literally re-architecturing the internet. They're re-architecturing the internet is what they're doing. Well, the secure asset transfer protocol is to move one digital asset, a tokenized asset, any type of tokenized asset, from one network to another. So it's not to swap. Like, it's not when you want to exchange an asset from one tokenized asset to another tokenized asset. No, the secure asset transfer protocol is specifically to move a digital asset from one network to another. If you want to swap a digital asset, a tokenized asset, whether it's tokenized bonds, stocks, derivatives, anything, if you want to exchange it for another asset, you want to swap it, you need liquidity, you need a bridge asset. And I show a video in one of my YouTube videos where the BIS is describing you need a bridge asset when there's insufficient liquidity. Now, if you're going from like USDC to USDT, there might be enough liquidity. It's fine. You don't need a bridge asset, maybe. But if you're going to pairs that are unliquid, which going to be like 95% of everything is going to be illiquid. They're all going to be illiquid pair because we're building the internet value. Like, we're tokenizing everything. Excuse me. Sorry, the whole world is being tokenized. So when you want to move, let's say, a tokenized real estate in Hong Kong, and you want to swap that for a Google stock, or you want to swap that for something else totally different, you need liquidity. You need a bridge asset for that. And Quant is not a liquidity. It's not a bridge asset. It's not a global liquidity solution or global liquidity asset. It's a universal utility token. Yes, you're going to have to use Quant. Anything you want to do on Quant Overledger, you're going to need to use QNT. But that's not a bridge asset when you want to exchange like one asset to another type of asset. And what else, sorry, that I want to add is, so I think based on the debates I've had, I think a lot of people think like atomic settlement means like you can just go from, sorry guys, clearing my throat like crazy. So I think when you want to, like, atomic settlement doesn't mean you don't need XRP, you don't need a settlement or bridge asset when you want to go from one type of asset to another. Settlement asset, because they're seeing Quant doing atomic settlement. But again, like, if Quant is doing atomic settlement, you have to ask yourself, which blockchain are they using? Which blockchain is Quant using to do the atomic settlement? And even if it wasn't using any blockchains at all, atomic settlement simply means that the transaction has to go through. It either goes through completely or it doesn't go through at all. That's what atomic settlement means. But I think a lot of people are thinking atomic settlement means that, oh, you can just go from one type of asset to the other, and you don't even need liquidity. You don't need a bridge asset. And to my opinion, that is incorrect. That's absolutely incorrect. So Quant Overledger, which is insanely powerful, right? It's the internet of trust. It's the biggest internet that's ever going to be built. Quant Overledger doesn't replace the need for XRP. It doesn't replace the need for a liquidity bridge asset when you're trying to swap a liquid asset or an asset to another asset that has insufficient liquidity. Quant doesn't replace Ripple XRP. It complements it, if anything, because it allows the whole world, again, to all the legacy systems to connect into the shared ledger, which is blockchain, and all the other blockchains too, to build what I called multi-chain applications. So that's it. Thanks for letting me have a little rant there. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Thank you for watching, and thank you for considering to subscribe on my channel. I really appreciate it, guys. I really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for the support that I've been receiving from the community. It's really a lot, and it's really touching. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah.
You're very welcome. Guys, if you listen to the entire outline, simply do us a solid and type in this key term into the comments, and that is Jesse is awesome, and we'll know that you listened to the entire outline. On behalf of myself and this guy over here, over at Apex Crypto Consulting, aka Jesse, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps flood, 110%. We will see you on the next one.